Okay, now. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to go now. I'm ready to start up now. And what we're gonna probably can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, what we're gonna probably end up doing is replaying this on our Facebook feed to keep us from echoing uh, as it relates to that. And so we are recording this now. But I do want to say to those that have the opportunity to share with us and to each and every one of you, I'm thankful to have you sharing with us on today for this most important discussion when we're talking about the issues of what we're going to be dealing with here that are very, very important. And we're talking about seasonal depression. It's a real issue that a number of us have had to deal with in one manner or another as a faith leader or as a person in your profession doing what you do for the people that you engage. And so we're looking forward to this discussion and being able to share this discussion with those that will need it. Uh, and so I'm grateful to have you all on today. And then I want to take the opportunity to welcome those who will have opportunity to be a part of viewing this to share with us. I'm going to start now with some self introductions. And I'm going to introduce myself as Dr. Robert Jones. I'm the pastor of the Mount Carmel Missionary Baptist Church. I'm also the administrative co-chair of Mid-South Multi-Faith Veterans and Family Initiative. And I'm also the president of the Greater New Era Congress of Christian Education. I want to share my PIES reference as it relates to you to let you know how I'm doing physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Physically, I'm doing real well. I'm beginning to do re-engage some exercising that I had not been doing, even though the holidays tends to cause us to do less exercising and more needing doing things that needs us to exercise. But I am doing that. Intellectually, I'm good in that I'm reading a new book, and I'm really excited about the new book. I really love to read, and I'm engaging in a new book, and I'm really excited about that particular book. As a matter of fact, it has to do with the Civil War. Black Cloud Rising is the title of that book, and it's a very good, an interesting book that I'm reading as relates to that. Emotionally, I'm doing very well, and I'm thankful emotionally that I've had opportunity to gain strength through the years through my experiences, especially during this time of year, uh, and all of the things that you engage relative to this time of year, as it relates to our families and our friends and those that we care and concerned about, and even our community. And then spiritually, I'm doing fine. I'm grateful as a pastor, as a preacher, uh, as a faith leader, as a person of faith. I'm comfortable in my skin as it relates to that and where I am. And so, with that, I would like to pass it to Director Walida Bennett.
Well, good evening, and thank you, Dr. Jones, Reverend Jones, for organizing this very timely and very important discussion. I am Walida Bennett, the founder and CEO of the Multi-Faith Veteran Initiative. I also come with 20 plus years of experience in the mental health field, as well as a certified trauma specialist. So this topic is really important. So physically, I am tired. It's that season where we have not enough time to run all the errands we need to run and shut down all of the work-related things that we're trying to shut down before we take a respite. So physically, I am tired. Intellectually, I'm good, but I'm shutting down. I think at some point during over the course of your engagement, it's important to turn the brain off so it can re-energize itself. So I'm trying not to do anything that's work related over the next 2 weeks. And hopefully I can finish a couple of books that I've been working my way through for some time. Emotionally, I'm good. These kinds of things always tend to energize me, but emotionally, I am good, and spiritually, I am good as we come upon this season. I tend to try to use this as a time of reflection as we end the year and think about what's ahead. And I think that that's critically important for all. So that's who I am, and that's how I'm doing. And I'm going to pass it over to Reverend Dr. Alvin Love.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett, and thank you, Dr. Jones, for calling us together on this important discussion. Uh, Very much needed at this time of year. Um, I'm doing well, and I am, you know, I'm the kind of person now since 2016 who lives by the thought that I'm good even on a bad day. So, um, so I'm doing well. Physically, I probably feel better than I have in 20 years. Uh, I don't. We don't have time for me to give that whole story, but physically, I'm fine. Um, Mentally, I'm pretty much with you, Dr. Bennett. I'm tired and ready to shut down and intend. As a matter of fact, I did not go to the office today. This is the only thing that I'm doing today. I'm already in shutdown mode, and I intend to be that way until, aside from Christmas service and New Year's Eve service, until January 6th or so. All right. Um, Spiritually, I'm doing well. I've been really been able to uh, over the last couple months shift some uh, scheduling around. I have one church, but I have two campuses, and kind of getting used to office in one place, office in another, traveling between them has been a source of adjustment for me, and I think I finally got it. And because of that, it's afforded me more time to just spend time with the Bible and with God in prayer. So I'm doing well spiritually. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Dickerson.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Love, Reverend Dr. Jones, Mrs. Bennett. This is an honor. I think I'm sitting before kings and the queen, and I appreciate being in this space. So I am the founder and CEO of Her Service Matters and also Victory Place. Victory Place is a nonprofit. The focus is working with those who experience trauma, on the job trauma, so military, first responders. I also work with their families. And then Her Service Matters is my counseling practice. I work with everybody. And I have over 30 years experience. I retired from the Department of Veteran Affairs last year and decided that I needed to continue this journey in working with people who've experienced extreme traumas. And how am I doing? I'm doing great. I'm sore, but I'm doing great. Um, Spiritually, um, I'm always growing, and I'm loving the journey. Intellectually, I am reading the book uh, about the 6 888 um, regiment, and the movie comes out on is out on Netflix.
Mhm.
So we'll be watching that this evening about the All Black Women Unit in during World War II. Um, and I I really need to take heed, both from what you said, Mrs. Bennett, and you, Reverend Dr. Love, trying to shut down, but I can't. I have so many things I'm working on. Um, I guess intellectually. I'm as soon as we're done this evening, I have some writing to do, and I want to say I really appreciate this topic as it is extremely timely. So thank you for spearheading this, Reverend Dr. Jones.
Well, thank you all very much.
Dr. Jones,
Yes, sir.
man, I'm so excited about this discussion that I forgot to tell you who I was. So
Feel
if I
free.
might, my name is Alvin Love, and I pastor the Lilydale First Baptist Church with our Heritage Campus in Chicago and our Legacy Campus in Park Forest, Illinois. I have been the pastor there for 41 years. I have been an officer in the National Baptist Convention. I am the architect of both the technology ministry and the faith-based office, development office of the National Baptist Convention. Having done that, as I worked alongside President Obama to develop the faith-based office for the White House. I am currently an advisor still to President Obama and an advisor to the community engagement department of the Obama or the Presidential Library. So um, that's all I got right now.
Okay. Very good, very good. Thank you all. I just want you to know that I have you all here because I have the utmost respect for you, especially how you have navigated a topic such as this uh, while I was watching or while you didn't know I was watching. And it means a lot to me to have you here. So I'm going to tee this up for us, and then we're going to go right into our discussion. Now, seasonal depression, known as seasonal affective disorder, SAD, okay, is a subtype of depression that typically occurs during the fall and the winter when the daylight hours are short. This condition is thought to be linked to reduced sunlight exposure, where it disrupts the body's internal clock, affecting neurotransmitter levels in the brain. Now, the symptoms of seasonal depression include persistent low mood, loss of interest in activities, changes in appetite and sleep patterns, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, feelings of worthlessness, and sometimes thoughts of suicide. Now, while professional counseling, secular or non-secular, can be and is a tremendous help, seeking help is crucial for proper diagnosis and effective management of seasonal mental health crises to improve overall well-being and functioning during this time of year. Now, there is another term reflecting the emotional difficulties of the season, and that other term is referred to as Blue Christmas. It's also called the longest night in the Western Christian tradition. On this day, some churches in the Western Christian denominations hold a church service that honors people who have lost loved ones and are experiencing grief. This worship service is traditionally held on or around the longest night of the year, which falls on or about December 21st, or the winter solstice. This worship also and often includes opportunities for expression of grief, pain, and heartbreak, as well as an opportunity to focus on the promise of hope found in Christ. Now, while we're not having a worship today, we are going to have a discussion regarding the realities of seasonal affective disorder relative to grief and other emotional challenges, and what we can do to make sure that we're not contributing to the personal challenges of those we know and are around, as well as what we can do to help. Now, as we engage into this conversation, I do feel that it is important to give this disclaimer. It is important for our viewers to know that this is a discussion among professionals and experienced people to activate awareness, and is not a therapeutic or a counseling session. We implore you or those that you know who may be experiencing seasonal affective disorder to seek individual or group counseling, secular or non-secular professional counseling. Now, with that, I want to open this up, uh, and uh, and I want to start with Dr. Dickerson, and the rest of us can chime in and add on, or even answer this ourselves when she says what she shares. But Dr. Dickerson, why is seasonal affective disorder something that needs to be taken more seriously, especially in the faith community?
It could grow into something even more serious. And you mentioned thoughts of suicide. And there is, um, according to studies, there's a high rate of suicide this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think that we really, you know, during this time where we're focusing on family getting together, we oftentimes overlook what's happening at the time. As you mentioned in terms of Blue Christmas, right?
Mm-hmm.
That typically during the end of the year, many families experience loss. So the fact that we're living in, our climate, it's dingy, it's dark, there's not a lot of sunlight, and you layer that on top of if you are experiencing loss, or in my particular case, I mean, many of you on this call, my story, um, you know, 4 days into the new year, many, many years ago, I lost my son. So when you think about, the transition from one year into the new year, it brings up a lot of emotions. And oftentimes we don't pay attention to what those emotions are, expressing those emotions, and having space where people can share in a way that's non-judgmental, that's not kind of gonna lay my hands of God on you, but just a space where people can share what it is that they're feeling. So it's a very important discussion to have, particularly during this time of the year.
Okay, thanks a lot. And I see that Dr. Love is ready to jump right in on that particular piece. But just before you do that, Doc, we're so grateful to have Shamika White with us. We knew that she was coming, and Shamika, what we'd like you to do is just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and then also share with us your past. Share with us how you're feeling physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Shamika White. I am retired Navy, did 17 years. Thank God that is over. And so I am now a very happy and blessed veteran with a 6-year-old son with autism. So my job isn't complete. I'm still working 24 hours on the clock. But I work alongside two beautiful women on this call here. Dr. Walida Bennett, I am her coordinator for Vet Her, her women's coordinator for Vet Her. And Dr. Renee Dickerson and I work very close together with the veterans. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Thought you was going to mention the handsome man that you work with from time to time, but that's okay. But that's all right.
And
Okay.
also the Dr. Reverend Robert Jones. Absolutely. Please forgive me.
That's okay. That's okay. I will yield to beautiful women, professionals any day of the week. And to Shamika and Dr. Love, back to where we are. What is why rather is seasonal affective disorder something that needs to be taken more seriously, especially in the faith community, Dr. Love?
Well, I think it's incumbent upon the faith community to be more sensitive to what's going on with people during this time of the year. As was said earlier, the days are shorter, the sunlight goes down, people's moods change. But you're absolutely right. Uh, I've noticed over my 41 years of pastoring that I do more funerals between November through February, let's say, than I do it any other part of the year.
Mhm.
And so you couple that with the holidays coming, which is supposed to be times of joy for people. It puts an added pressure on them to feel better,
Mhm.
when in fact, um, everything in them tells them that they ought to feel lousy. And unless we create the space where they can come in and talk about it, where they can express it, um, sometimes it's just a matter of blowing off some steam. We have to create that space, because the church can be a judgmental place, if if folks don't follow our set pattern of the religious calendar. Everybody's supposed to be filled with joy during Christmas. Well, that's not so. There are things that happen at Christmas. As a matter of fact, I'm dealing with two things right now. Uh, uh, I lost my own brother. Had his funeral 2 weeks before Christmas last year, and his daughters are really a wreck right now. So I have to try to help keep them up and let them know, that they have family with them. Uh, we haven't forgotten them, and that they're included in everything that goes on during this time. And then one of my members, a 25-year-old, was died of a rare disease a week before Christmas, and his mother's on the edge right now, and she's one of those sisters that will, you know, short fuse, big bomb. All right. So I have to be aware of that, and check on them. Say, hey, how you doing? If you need to talk, come on. Here are some things that we can do to help you, and keep you engaged in this during this time. So I think the church has to be sensitive to it. Everybody is not in the mood for celebration, even though we'll get up on Sunday morning and say, let's celebrate the birth of Jesus. Yeah, we're going to celebrate it, but we're going to include those who are not in the mood, and try to shift that mood, um, to something else that will give them a greater sense of purpose during this time.
Thank you, Dr. Love. Shamika, would you share as it relates to
Yes.
why is seasonal affective disorder something that needs to be taken more seriously, especially in the faith community?
Yes, thank you for asking, and please forgive me if I repeat anything that was already said.
No, that's okay.
That would just mean we're in alignment,
That's
right?
exactly right.
Uh, so just a little bit about me before I jump into this. While I served in the military, I managed a church. So I had to oversee on Camp Pendleton, the Marine Corps bases. I was the chaplain's assistant, so I managed all of the churches on Camp Pendleton. And so the church is supposed to be the safe space, right? And some know that it is the spiritual hospital, right? So this is the place, the facilities, um, where everyone should be able to come to no matter what they're facing or what they're battling. It's supposed to be a safe space. And it should be, I have to agree with you, Dr. Love. We have to have a lot more, we should exemplify a lot of empathy and sympathy in the faith community, and no judgment, right? Because all of us have sinned and fallen short, so we should not be looking upon anyone with judgment. And that's what the faith community needs to rise up at, so that people could feel more comfortable to come in. Everyone, it's a spiritual hospital. So from the bottom to the top, we're all going to the church for some help, and that's why I personally feel like um, the faith community should have open doors for whatever happens. And as far as depression, over 20 million people battle with depression, and the holiday blues. We can only imagine what's going on in the household if even in the summertime and the springtime they're battling with depression. What happens in the wintertime when, as you guys discussed, it gets darker in the winter times? It's only going to heighten. And so the church doors, the faith community doors should be open for those who need some help.
Can I just add, Shamik, because I think you raised an important point in terms of what people carry during the summer. it's really interesting that during the summer, because you have a lot of light, and it's very giddy and people are up. But as human beings, we tend to mask a lot. And I like to describe it like you're going on a trip and you're packing a suitcase. And this probably applies more to women than it does to men, and you overpack. And you sit on that suitcase so you can get it closed. Well, what's interesting about that, there's only so long that those locks are going to hold. And sooner or later, they're going to pop open and they're going to explode. So we can think about that when we think about what people carry all year long. And if we think about how the seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, the acronym is called generally, and it's at the end of the year, what do we get? We get the end of the year explosion.
Absolutely.
Because we don't do the work all of those other times. And so I believe that the church becomes a critical space within the community. And because particularly in the African American community, it's the only institution we own. So what are we doing to create this 365 days a year, a space that is safe and welcoming and unconditional, where people feel like they can come in and reveal what it is that they are carrying? And I think that's critically important.
Quite critical.
That sounded like a question.
Yeah.
It's quite critical. A couple things that comes out of what you guys have said. One of them, Dr. Love, was one of the things that you said as relates to who you are and what you do. And I noticed, and as it relates to this conversation, you said I, and I think that reality is unfortunately a lot of what overwhelms us, and that is that we don't have enough others who are trained to help us, and we put all of that on the faith leader, and that faith leader, he or she does as much as they can, but they can only do so much because, as it was says, they have brothers and sisters too. They have mothers and fathers too. Okay, that doesn't make them weak. It makes them real. Okay, and I think that a lot of times that one of the things that we have learned or are learning is that, and it's something that Shamika said, and she said it so comfortably. Okay, she said the church is supposed to do this. The faith community is supposed to do that, which implies that it's not. Okay, or it's expected. And I've even heard Sister Juanita make mention of it. That this is what they ought to be doing. Okay, and I think it's conversations like this, as we expand them, not only with faith leaders, but with those who are leaders within these congregations, that need to be taught the importance of everything. I mean, everything from even the types of music that we do during the time of year. We have to become mindful of that sort of thing. Okay, some of us are mindful in other areas when it comes to that. If the music is too contemporary, we'll speak to that. Okay, but we won't speak to something that is really, and I'll just throw it out there, like a Silent Night. Okay, we don't speak to the impact that a song like Silent Night has to individuals in the faith community. Now, we want to deal with everybody, but let's deal with the people who we think aren't supposed to be having this problem at all. Okay, we're supposed to be wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up. Okay, and we're the ones that are having more issues because those issues are going undealt with. And I think it becomes important for faith leaders to come to take seriously. And I know the ladies that are in this conversation, Dr. Love, and especially Director Walida, as well as Sister Shamika, has really taught me a lot as relates to engaging with military personnel, veterans. Okay, yeah, my dad was in the military. Yeah, my son was in the military, and that didn't make me any more knowledgeable about the issues. Okay, I was one of those. I was one of those guys. I was one of those preachers that thought I was doing my thing when we had Veterans Day and we give out some flags. Okay. Or we would tell people or wonder why folk would get upset when we tell them, thank you for your service. And they would get offended. And we wonder, well, what's wrong with them? That's what they do on television, right? Okay. Well, just as we had to, and because of trainings like we've had that brought guys like myself to the levels that we need to be and others, I think it's important for us to understand that we need to have trainings and identify because as Dr. Dickerson has shared with me earlier this week, there are resources that are around. It's just a matter of being connected with those resources or being able to know where those resources are and directing people toward those resources because that becomes important for us to understand. Because it seems like an oxymoron to talk about the loss of hope and faith community in the same sentence. Okay.
Right.
But the reality is, there it is, right? And if we don't face and engage that, we won't help people in the areas that they need to be helped. Because see, when Dr. Love made mention of the fact of all of these funerals that he had, all of those funerals, as well as I have had myself, weren't from people who experienced tragedy.
Right.
Some of those folk gave up and died.
Yeah.
Okay, they lost hope. Okay, they were sick. They could have made it through, but they just and so it becomes important for. So what do you guys think about that?
I just want to I just want to interject. The church, as it was established, has really been where veterans had gone to find some type of peace. And for my best example I can think of is King David. I consider him like a Marine in the Bible.
Mhm.
And it was his journey back to his faith and his belief in God that helped him in the midst of all the tragedies he's experienced. Unlike Saul, who was also a warrior king, he lost his mind. And for this time of year, for many combat veterans, so many have experienced probably some of their worst combat experiences because the enemy knows what months of the year is very important to us. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Mother's Day. Okay, now we have 9/11 that we're recognizing. And so the enemy is very strategic when planning to attack our military. So they come back with that. So on top of their PTSD and moral injury, then now they're experiencing seasonal affective disorder, SAD.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the moral injury piece because when we think about post-traumatic stress disorder, it's that physiological response to the external trauma, and how we're going to manage that, which you don't have to be a veteran to experience PTSD, right? And we, as professionals, we can help you through the PTSD, right? The moral injury, that's something that's very different because you're not going to medicate your way out of it. It's very internal. And it is, how do we reconcile either what I've seen or heard or done or what I'm carrying? Because when we started this discussion, Reverend Jones talked about some of the symptoms, and he talked about this notion of guilt. And so guilt is very much wrapped up in moral injury. It's guilt and it's shame. And if you think about when you are raising children, sometimes what we try to do in our effort to discipline them is shame them into good behavior.
Mm-hmm.
We make them feel bad about what it is that they did that they weren't supposed to do. And they feel shame and they feel guilt. How do you reconcile that? How do you carry that? How do you reconcile it in a way that it does not impact you in a way that's negative? And with little children, what we tend to do, okay, now we're not going to do this again. And we try to say something that makes them feel better. When you're an adult, who's making you feel better? Who is there to say something that is going to help you to feel better with what you are carrying? So the role of the church, the faith community, becomes critically important in creating spaces for folk and maybe coming out of our traditional comfort, knowing who your parishioners are, and if we're talking about grief, you might get a phone call if you lose someone and you're an active member of the church and they mean well, but they're calling your house every single day. And the question is, while yes, you mean well, and that's kind of part of the tradition of the church, are you re-traumatizing them every time you pick up that phone and dial? Or is there another way that could be managed so that that person knows that you're there, they know that you're there to support them, but you're not being overbearing, if you will. There's an interesting therapeutic dance that happens between the therapist and the client. You got to know when and when not. And it's not something that you learn in school. It's something that you learn by having a connection with the person that is sitting from you, right? And so I think that those are some things that we also need to pay particular attention to when we are gauging people during this time of the year.
Okay. Anyone else? Shamik? Yes.
Yes, I would like to add to that. Because working behind the scenes in the church, I get this, I was able to see a lot of things. What I think that the congregation and members of the church don't see is that some of the reverends and pastors, they have therapists. I don't think they know that. I think that it's in our community, it's this stigma on therapy, right? Like mental health, wait, whoa, we're going to back far away from that. But great counselors get counseling, okay? Because listening, getting all this feedback and listening to all this trauma, sometimes as human beings, we tend to carry that weight. And who do we talk to, right? We have to have a counselor to talk to. And that's why I think that the congregation and some of the members, they miss that piece. They think that it's just always preaching, teaching. And they don't think that the leaders are getting therapy as well. And for those who are not getting therapy, they need to. They have to bring, it's God plus therapy. And I think that's what the church and the congregation fails to realize.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there's another thing that we also need to look at to make sure that when we use the term faith community, that we're not just parochially reaching to the Christian community, okay? Because we have the Muslims or the Muslims, okay? We have the Jehovah's Witnesses, okay? We have the Catholics. And then, of course, we have the various divisions of Christianity outside of Catholics, or AKA Protestants, okay? Be it African Methodist, Episcopal, or whatever. But I think it becomes important for us to understand that our reach is that safe place. And one of the things I value, and I guess this is a shameless plug for multi-faith veterans and families, in that the reach is to make a safe place even for all of those different faiths, okay? And that becomes important for us to understand in our reach as well, because there are some presumptions that we make. Some of the things that Director Walida said that, and Dr. Love can attest to this as I have. Some of those things we learned in clinical pastoral uh, 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 education. Okay, and so, but the unfortunate reality is most of our leading faith leaders now aren't completely seminary trained. Okay, and so they're not getting some of those ends. Okay, and insurance companies knows it, which is why insurance companies are adding counseling riders onto those insurances because having everybody hold hands and having a word moment of silence, and then the unthinkable happens later that day is not going to get it. Okay, because the first person they say, well, I had prayer with Reverend Jones, and then they went in the house and took everybody out. Okay, but the last person I had prayer with was him. Okay, when that we need to make absolutely sure that when we're talking about these sorts of situations and circumstances uh, uh, during this time of year, that our reach becomes intentional because we not only want to make sure that clergy are educated, but we want to make sure that laity are educated. And I think that, and that leads us to resources, okay, and access to resources. And I think that becomes an important part that I want to share with us now for you all to chime in on is that are there some resource lists and are there some toll-free numbers that people can access if they need assistance of know of someone who does? Because sometimes we have to know how to refer, and we have to know when it's beyond our ability to take care of the situation and we need some help. And the question is there some help out there?
There's help out there. We have, Victory Place, the esteemed Dr. Renee Dickerson, who I certainly would refer people to. I think that, of course, you have the suicide hotline, the 988 number for people that are experiencing extreme distress. We have the National Association of Mental Health, Association of Black Social Workers, Association of Black Psychologists. I think it's important that when you're talking about resources and therapy, that you also want to make sure that those individuals are not only clinically trained, but they're culturally sensitive, because culture makes a huge difference in the therapeutic process. And so you have, these lists of resources that are there.
Yeah,
Dr.
Dr. Jones, I
Dickerson,
think
you
it's
have that, yeah.
critical for church leadership to actually have those resources at their fingertips. Uh, Sometimes in the faith community, the local pastor or the head of that faith community will perceive themselves, and sometimes they get it from the folks as the expert on everything. And folks will come looking for answers, and they may give answers that are not accurate. So, in my office, matter of fact, in both offices, I have credenzas with doors. I've got about four doors in the one in the city. And on each one of those doors, I have taped a list of numbers, contacts, and resources for whatever the issue might be, so that I can refer them beyond my ability, uh, to deal with it. I've got a background in psychology. I've worked with the Christian Counseling Network, so I have, but I'm not a licensed therapist, so I'm not going to try to do what is not mine to do. Um, so I will send them to the experts and the people who not only are trained in it, but it's really their calling. That's what We want to see it as a calling. And I think as a faith leader, my job is to help them with to respond to this on both the micro and the macro level. As Dr. Jones, you mentioned earlier that one of the reasons that we have such a disconnect is that a lot of our faith leaders are not seminary trained, and they may not really have the kind of resources in the local church to address some of these issues. And so, I served 6 years as the president of the Baptist State Convention in Illinois. At the time, I think when the convention was at its largest. And so, one of the things that I tried to do was to train and use experts to train. And we would go to DePaul University and get experts to train at least one person in every association who could then help the local pastors engage in those kinds of issues. And so having that resource, I think it's both, we need it on the local level, but we also need it on a macro level so that we can help train our local pastors and how to be sensitive to the needs of their membership, their communities, because it's not just their membership. Because a whole bunch of folk who live in the neighborhood will claim the church and never come in to hear you preach, Reverend Jones. So, but they'll show up when they have a crisis, and so we have to be ready to respond and be trained and equipped to meet the needs that they have.
Mhm. So the Multi-Faith Veteran Initiative, or MVI as we call ourselves, we've been doing over the last 3-4 years, we've been doing trainings, trauma trainings for the faith community. We think it's not just focusing on understanding the issues that veterans and their families go through, but just trauma in general. It's a train the trainer model because we know that resources are limited. And they're probably going to become even more limited given the current climate that we are in. So I do think that if we look at it from a collective society perspective, then we have the expertise that we need at our fingertips. So how do we make sure that we are training our communities so that they can be equipped to service our community members?
Okay. Anyone else want to share? One of the things that I did do, and I want to thank Dr. Dickerson for this. I've been sharing the screen of resources, and for those of you that will be watching this on Facebook Live, if you would like to get copies of this information, you could just contact me. Just put in that you would like to get copies of this, and we can get copies to you. We can make that happen and for you because there's a number of things, and I was trying to just be as deliberate while you all were discussing, but I do want to add, I'll ask at this time, Dr. Dickerson, is there anything that you want to add to this? Yes, please.
Thank you. I just want to mention, since you are on this page about the different light therapies, it's actually prescribed by many providers. I know the VA and also in the community, because they found that the artificial lighting shown on the body, certain hours during the day, it does improve. And there's also listed where you can find these items. And then movement, exercise, hobbies, gatherings. I really appreciate the Multi-Faith Initiative, Bulitha and Shamika, because of the different activities you have to get veterans and their families to come out of the homes, because it's so easy to self-isolate. And regarding 911, I always tell my clients, don't wait until you're suicidal to call.
Right.
I think that's too late. I'd rather you call when you're having a bad day, you just feeling down.
Okay, I think that I want to really appreciate you sharing this information with us and making it available. I think it becomes a tremendous help to this conversation. And I think that as we begin to wrap this up today, I think it becomes important for us to be able to express to our faith leaders and any of the faith leaders or those connected with faith leaders that will be watching this to know that we need to really begin to think outside of the box as relates to providing spaces for professionals to be available to help our people. Um, and it becomes important for us to understand that as much as we concentrate on educating our people relative to classes and seminars and things of this sort, I think it becomes important for us to make sure that we can put some of the same energy into providing opportunities to help and deal with mental health. Uh, and and is and I'll say it, it's not free and it's not cheap. Okay, but it is important and it is needed, and we should be willing to make those kinds of investments for the good of all of our people. Okay. In closing, anything that you all want to wrap up on to share with those that would be watching this as we prepare to close it out?
Yeah, I think I would just like to say two things. I know Shamika had mentioned something earlier about pastors who have therapists. Most of my professional career has been about taking the stigma out of mental health. And it's gotten a lot better. We focused historically a lot on physical health, but mental health is critically important. And so I would say to the faith leaders and the pastors that may be viewing this, come out of the dark. Let folks know that sometimes you need to go and talk with someone because you're carrying a lot. You're carrying your stuff and you're carrying your congregations. And so it's okay. I think for those that are listening to this, give yourself permission to be not okay. It is okay to not be okay. And during the holiday, now most of you on this call, you know, it is okay to tell people no. I cannot do this. Because you can give, and then you end up completely depleted. So I would say be kind to yourself, know that it is okay to be okay, and give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling without explanation. And if you need to speak to someone, look at those resources that was provided for you and make that phone call.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else?
I think, Dr. Jones, I'd like to piggyback on what you just said about come out of the light and come out of the darkness. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You said we weren't having worship, but you put a preacher on, and that's biblical. It says because we are children of the light, and we don't dwell in darkness, and so let's come out. And the other thing for me is that once you see the light, you don't want somebody else to see it, and so uh, get people to where they can get the help and the assistance that they need. I think that's part of our responsibility. And yeah, it is okay not to be okay, uh, but sometimes the church will try to make people feel better by getting them just throwing more activity at them. If you can just keep your mind off it, you can do one thing after the other, and we end up actually putting more stuff on people than they really should. So I think there's that balance between giving them enough to stay connected with other people and not overwhelming them so that we end up adding guilt because they don't want to say no to us. So, um, we always say, get in where you fit in. Give people enough room to do just that. And yeah, if they don't feel like doing it, fine. Encourage them to get the rest so that they can feel better tomorrow. All right. And the thing about being a people of hope is that you always want people looking for tomorrow. People commit suicide when they don't see tomorrow. There's no way out. And so we want to always encourage that, maybe today wasn't the best day, but let's make tomorrow better. Right?
Anyone else? Well, I just want to take this opportunity to say to each and every one of you, thank you for what you shared. I think this has been a very helpful and fruitful conversation. To those of you that will have opportunity to share in this conversation via Facebook Live, we're hoping that you're blessed and helped by what was shared on today. Shamika?
Yes, before we close out, I just want everyone to see a depression survivor. I am a depression survivor. This time is normally really tough for me, but I have created a new normal. So for Christmas, I go to Mexico every year. I have to get away, and I make sure that I am in the sun. I take my time every year. And like Walida said, it's a no around this season for me so that I can feel better and I can have the energy that I need for my son. In addition, I want to thank Dr. Renee Dickerson for the resources, because a lot of times people don't think about exercising. And exercising combats depression. Because I battled depression, I had to study my enemy. I needed to know what I needed to do to defeat this thing. And so I allowed exercise to become my number one thing. And it has helped me tremendously, tremendously. And the exercises release the dopamines in our brain that is a feel-good hormone. And so a lot of people don't know that. And so I've made exercising number one for me so that I won't have to go face to face with my enemy, and I just wanted to encourage someone, and also journaling. Trauma, depression, all these things can mute you, silence you. And so writing, journaling helps me get what I'm feeling out. And I just wanted to encourage people that it's you can survive this.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you all so much and take care. And until next time,
All right.
take
Happy
care.
holiday for everybody.
And God bless you all.
All right. God
Merry
bless.
Yes.
All
Christmas.
right.
God
Merry
bless and
Christmas.
happy holiday.
Happy holiday.